Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and over-polished pride. Laughter echoed off the marble walls, sharp and merciless, and every note seemed to land squarely on me. My wife, Elise, stood center stage in a crimson dress, her hand resting too comfortably on Chris Whitaker's back. Chris, her colleague, her confidant, and, as I was about to confirm, far more than that. The microphone squealed, pulling the crowd into silence. Chris grinned with the sloppy bravado of a man who thought he was untouchable. "Tonight's about family," he slurred, arms sliding tighter around Elise's waist. "The ones who keep us alive, who matter more than anyone else." The audience cheered, wine glasses raised high. Then his finger pointed straight at me. And then there's him, Elise's houseboy. Useless. Bankrupt. The guy who irons shirts and runs errands. That's the best she could do. Laughter erupted. Loud. Cruel. Elise tilted her head back and joined in, her laugh cutting sharper than any knife. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I didn't look down. I stared right at Chris, lifted my glass, and with a smile that felt carved in stone said, "Enjoy that office while you can." And then I walked out. The doorman wished me Merry Christmas, as if I hadn't just buried my marriage inside that room. But outside, under the cold December night, I wasn't Elise's husband anymore. I wasn't a joke. I was something else entirely, something no one in that ballroom realized. I slid into my car, opened my phone, and tapped into the encrypted folder I had prepared months ago. Red Winter, I called it. A file of acquisition contracts, proxy agreements, and voting shares traced through shell companies Elise never even suspected existed. For a year, she thought I was small, that I'd given up, that my life was fixing gutters and alphabetizing spices while she played queen at her firm. But I had been moving in silence, investing, buying influence in the very holding company that owned her business. And now, with Chris's drunken humiliation as the final nail, I had all the ammunition I needed. Elise hadn't just mocked her husband that night. She'd handed me the weapon that would destroy her world. I stared at the city, skyline glittering in the distance. Elise believed I was the safety net, always there to catch her, always too soft to leave. But nets can strangle if you twist them right. And I was done being her shadow. Tomorrow morning, they would discover that the man they laughed at was the man holding the strings. And for Chris and Elise, humiliation at a Christmas party would be nothing compared to what I had planned. Morning didn't arrive. It detonated. I woke before dawn with a plan already humming in my veins. Name this clearly, I told myself. No more vague pronouns and polite lies. I'm Noah Mercer. My wife, now a stranger in my kitchen, is Ava Sterling. Her work husband, the man who wrapped an arm around her waist while a ballroom laughed at me, is Dylan Cross. Their company is North Peak Collective, owned quietly by Hartwell Holdings. Different names than the ones they parade on stage, but accurate enough for the truth that's coming. I brewed pour over the way Ava liked it. For minutes, slow spiral, no sugar. Old habit. The kettle hissed like a temper I'd retired long ago. On the island sat the leather planner she bought me when she decided I was better at errands than ideas. Lists from our life were tucked inside. Dry cleaning tickets, a dented grocery card, the tailor's business card with a smiley face she drew to poke fun at my meticulous cuffs. Proof of the role she cast me in. Dependable, invisible, easy to underestimate. Down the hall, the house smelled like her orange blossom perfume and last night's laughter. I opened my laptop and unlocked the encrypted vault I'd maintained for months. Inside, neat folders waited like loaded drawers in a surgical cart. Proxy agreements, positions in Hartwell, quietly collected through 2 Delaware LLCs and a family trust Ava never asked about. Compliance packet, timestamps, audio clips from public events, Slack screenshots forwarded by scared juniors who didn't want their names used. Restructuring plan, drafted with outside counsel in case the rot ever needed cutting out. People think cheating is a single act in a shadowed room. It isn't. It's a slow apprenticeship in boundary pushing. Private jokes that become private lunches that become emergency strategy sessions at a boutique hotel where the staff knows your nickname. I learned this not from a private investigator, but from routine, The kind of routine that tells you what time the elevator dings when she comes home, how her perfume shifts from Office Bright to something heavier, how her laughter changes when she's performed for an audience too long. I never went through her phone. I didn't have to. Ava narrated herself. She'd come back from launches flushed with triumph and diner coffee, dropping crumbs of story like confetti. Dylan says I carry the room. She'd grin, biting into a cold apple at 1 a.m. He says I'm lightning. People just don't know how to catch me. She wanted me to be impressed and a little jealous. Instead, I learned the rhythm of where she'd been, what she wanted, and how he packaged it for her. Lightning. I wrote that down the first time she said it. A word can become a map. I opened another folder. North Peak / Q3 launch Mirage. That's when it began to tip from flirtation into orbit. She and Dylan built an us versus the mythology over late-night decks and champagne hard stops. A junior strategist, nervous as a rabbit, sent me the first anonymous clip months later. Dylan's voice bragging at a rooftop bar that he could move Ava into VP if she stayed loyal. Loyalty, in that sentence, didn't mean work ethic. Here's the part people never believe. I didn't rage. I invested. While Ava charged headlong into rooms craving applause, I made rooms smaller, boardrooms, where applause doesn't matter and votes do. Hartwell wasn't public, but it was porous. Old money, quiet money, tired of noisy headlines and falling conversion metrics. A patient person with clean capital could collect influence the way a tide collects shells. I called Klein and Rowe, the outside counsel I'd retained, under a project name. Pine Harbor. So boring it would slide off any curious mind. Advance the timeline, I said. Soft optics first. Then we do the surgery. We have votes. By nightfall, yes. HR. Ready. But they don't move until we do. I closed the laptop and looked around the kitchen where our entire marriage lived in outlines. 2 stools, 2 mugs, her favorite copper pan, my notebook. I'd wanted a simple life with an honest center, morning runs together, the kind of dinners where we told the truth even when it was clumsy. She'd wanted orbit, rooms that bent toward her. We had both built what we wanted, and where they overlapped was a hallway of polite nods. Still, before you judge me for planning revenge as carefully as a merger, know this. I tried. The first time I knew for sure about Ava and Dylan was a small thing. She came home with a smear of foundation on her collar that wasn't her shade, citrus layered over a cologne she never let me wear. I asked if she ate at the hotel bar again. She said, "Don't be small, Noah," and laughed like the question was beneath the woman she'd become. I said okay and ran a bath for her anyway. Then I went to my office, closed the door, and wrote 3 sentences on a single sheet of paper. If she won't respect the truth, give her consequence. Don't scream. Move. When it's over, leave it clean. Clean matters. Revenge that stains you isn't worth winning. I texted Riley Maddox at 7:20 a.m. Once an EVP at Hartwell, pushed out by a coalition Dylan, helped assemble under the banner of Culture Refresh. Riley was brilliant and blunt, and never forgot the taste of the sidewalk the day security walked him out with a banker's box and a cactus. Breakfast at Kendrick's, I wrote. Need your spine and your institutional memory. He was already there when I arrived, coffee half gone, the old scars of the company's politics sitting unhidden on his face. We didn't do small talk. You got leverage? He asked. Votes by midnight, I said, and a narrative the board can defend. He nodded once. Then they'll fold. Hartwell hates public heat. I slid him a thin folder, bullet points, not speeches. He scanned, whistled low, and pushed it back. You take the chair he stole from me, he said. I'll take the procurement committee. We'll fix the engine he flooded. HR will need cover, I said. No witch hunt. Policy, procedure, timelines. Then we give them one, he replied. You cut the head. I'll cauterize the rest. On the way home, I drove past North Peak's building, the glass prismatic in winter light. I'd stood in that lobby before holding a bouquet during a Valentine's drop-in, a joke of a husband with a heart-shaped balloon, while juniors pressed badges and smiled at the performance. I could still hear the burst of laughter from an open collaboration space when someone read my name off the visitor log. Ava's guy is here with flowers. It wasn't the joke that hurt. It was the assumption that I'd never be anything else. Back at the condo, Ava was in athleisure, hair up, scrolling her team group chat. She looked like someone who had learned to simulate rest. You left early last night, she said, not looking up. Had what I needed. I answered. A blink, small but there. You okay? I'm focused. She laughed lightly, testing the air for the shape of my mood. Noah, don't tell me you're still thinking about Dylan's dumb toast. The guy loves a room. He wasn't serious. He was perfectly serious, I said. So were you. Her jaw tightened. Are you going to punish me for not managing your feelings every minute? There was the way she reframed gravity. I let the line drift away. We've both been busy, I said. You with your launches, me with mine. What launches? Suspicion now. You'll see. She rolled her eyes and tied her shoes. I'm meeting Dylan for a debrief. He wants to align on Q1. Don't wait up for dinner. I might be late. There was a time when that sentence cracked me in half. Now it's just weather. Drive safe, I said, meaning it, because hatred was never the point. When the door closed, I set the next piece. A secure upload to Hartwell's compliance portal. Audio from the party, public event, public mic, corroborating stills, and 3 notarized statements from employees who'd logged incidents all quarter and been ignored. I included a recommendation. Delay public action until the board completed its vote. No spectacle, no leaks, no headlines. We weren't going to torch the building. We were going to sweep it. At noon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your access package is ready. Badge and parking tomorrow at 8:30. V. Lang, the CEO. Curt, careful, decisive. He'd read the room and the numbers and picked a side. The side least likely to embarrass Hartwell before year-end reporting to its institutional partners. I spent the rest of the afternoon composing a different kind of note. The kind that leaves no blood. Not to Ava. To myself. Rules for the next 72 hours. Don't gloat. Don't argue. Document everything. Protect people who told the truth. When it ends, end it with dignity. At 5:41 p.m., Ava texted, late. Don't wait up. No emoji. No performance. Overtime had turned into gravity for her. The place, she felt chosen. I stared at the message a moment longer than necessary, then put my phone face down. I set a single envelope under the fruit bowl. A copy of a formal complaint already logged with North Peak about the party incident and its hostile fallout, with names redacted except the ones that mattered, Dylan's and mine. I wasn't going to out her affair to the world. I didn't need that to win. But her laughter on that stage had consequences, and those consequences would arrive in procedural language stamped with Hartwell's seal. Before sleep, I walked the condo once, room by room. The tree lights blinked, a cracked ornament. Our first home. Caught the glow and threw it back like a warning flare. We had built a life with expensive edges and hollow centers. I thought about who we were when we started. Takeout on moving boxes. Dawn jogs through a quiet neighborhood. Her head on my shoulder mid-movie. Me planning a small backyard wedding with too many string lights. Those people weren't liars. They were just young. And young people don't understand how desire can turn into hunger and hunger into appetite for applause you can't stop chasing. I turned off the tree, closed the study door, and set 2 alarms. One for 5 a.m., the other for 8:58. At 8:59 tomorrow, the door to the South Corner office at Hartwell's flagship would open, and a man who believed he owned the room would find me sitting in his chair with a file labeled transition. He'd learn what Ava never learned. Silence is not surrender. It's setup. And when silence breaks, it isn't noisy. It's final. The morning air tasted like steel, cold, sharp, and brimming with consequence. I had woken before dawn, shaved until my jawline was clean, tied my tie twice until the knot sat just right, and pressed a suit that hadn't seen daylight since our wedding. Back then, Ava had kissed my cheek and whispered that she loved how steady I looked in it. Today, that same suit would become a weapon, a uniform for the final act of a revenge she had unknowingly scripted. By the time I arrived at Hartwell Holdings headquarters, the lobby was already humming with the cadence of a Monday. Phones rang. Elevator chimes echoed. Assistants with double-shot lattes and tablets tucked under their arms darted from door to door, oblivious that a quiet detonation was about to reshape their building. I didn't belong to Ava's world anymore, not as a husband trailing behind, not as the houseboy Dylan mocked. I belonged to the world that decides who keeps the corner office and who is escorted out with a box of staplers and regrets. I checked in at the front desk. Noah Mercer, I said. The receptionist glanced at her screen, froze for half a second, then stood straighter. Mr. Mercer, she corrected herself, voice respectful now. Your badge is ready. She slid a sealed envelope toward me. Inside, a gold-trimmed access card and parking privileges. My official credentials as a decision-maker. It was 8:20 when I rode the elevator to the 22nd floor. The mirrored walls reflected a man even I barely recognized. Calm, unshaken, dangerous in his stillness. At 8:25, I stepped into the glass-walled boardroom. Half the board was already seated. Some glanced up at me, confusion twitching across their faces. Who was this man they'd barely noticed before? A husband? A bystander? No. Today, I was their new partner. Victor Lang, Hartwell's weary CEO, cleared his throat. We'll begin shortly. He nodded toward me, subtle, but enough to signal the board who had his quiet backing. Across the table, Riley Maddox leaned back in his chair like he'd never been exiled. His eyes met mine briefly, then flicked toward the empty seat reserved for Dylan. The silence was delicious. At 8:59, Victor spoke, his tone level but firm. We've received a proxy majority, calling for immediate restructuring. Effective today, the role of Executive Vice President of Marketing is terminated under misconduct clauses. A ripple of murmurs spread through the table like static. Some jaws slackened. One board member dropped his pen. Another blinked like the sentence hadn't processed. And then came the sound of footsteps, late, arrogant, careless. Dylan. The boardroom door swung open. He walked in with his usual swagger, jacket unbuttoned, protein shake in one hand, phone in the other. But the second his eyes landed on me, sitting where he believed he belonged, his stride faltered. What the hell is this? He demanded, looking around for backup. Victor didn't flinch. Mr. Cross, you're no longer employed at Hartwell or North Peak. HR will reach out with further details. Security has already been notified. For a man who thrived on noise, Dylan was suddenly mute. His face drained to the color of paper. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in his life. I didn't stand. I didn't argue. I simply adjusted my cufflinks, let my silence weigh heavier than any insult he'd ever thrown, and gestured to the empty guest chair across from me. Sit, I said softly. He didn't. His hand trembled. The protein shake slipped from his grip and rolled across the floor, spinning like a coin until it stopped against Riley's shoe. The boardroom was silent enough to hear his breath hitch. Security arrived minutes later, a tall man in a pressed Navy uniform. He didn't speak, didn't threaten. He simply placed a sealed envelope on the credenza and said, Mr. Cross, your badge has been deactivated. Please follow me. Dylan stumbled backward like the room itself was rejecting him. His arrogance collapsed, replaced by something raw and human. Fear. He muttered something under his breath, but no one leaned in to hear it. He left with the officer, and, just like that, the man who had mocked me in front of hundreds was gone. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I leaned back in his chair, my chair now, and exhaled slowly. The meeting concluded in a blur of signatures and hushed whispers. By 9:45 a.m., my nameplate was fixed outside the corner office. Noah Mercer, EVP. I walked inside, the leather chair still warm from Dylan's absence. His scent lingered faintly, cheap cologne and stale ego. On the desk sat two unopened laptops, a neat stack of contracts, and a box of business cards already printed with my name. I wasn't here for furniture. I was here for precision. By 10 o'clock, my inbox pinged with the first HR audit binder. Thick, damning, filled with complaints that had been buried under Dylan's culture refresh. Reading them was like flipping through a book of ghosts. Interns mocked publicly, junior staff cornered during offsites, employees silenced with promises of promotions that never came. And threaded in the documents were Ava's fingerprints. Emails, inside jokes, and transcripts where her laughter wasn't just complicity, it was endorsement. At 10:17, an official HR email went out. Effective immediately, Ava Sterling will be placed on administrative leave, pending the outcome of an internal investigation. I didn't need to add my name. The facts spoke louder than any revenge plot could. Minutes later, my phone lit up. Ava, are you okay? Then another. Did something happen with Dylan? I let the messages sit, unanswered. Silence, I'd learned, can scream louder than rage. At 10:42, the echo of heels struck down the hallway. Fast, Urgent. She appeared in my doorway, hair pinned too tightly, lips cracked from stress. Her eyes darted from the polished nameplate on my door to the man in the chair she thought would always belong to Dylan. Her face collapsed. "Noah," she whispered. What is this?" I folded a report neatly, set it aside, and met her eyes. "Consequence." Her hand shook as she spotted the folder on my desk. She picked it up, flipped through the photos, transcripts, and witness statements. Page 3 froze her. A still of Dylan's arm locked around her waist at the Christmas party, her head thrown back in laughter. "You planned this," she stammered, voice cracking. "You've been plotting this the whole time." "No," I said calmly. "I've been preparing. You're the one who handed me the timing." She dropped into the guest chair like her body had forgotten how to stand. The mask she wore at every party, every meeting, every dinner, shattered. Her eyes brimmed with a terror she couldn't dress in charm. "This isn't you," she whispered. "You're not, this cold." I leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "No, Ava. This is me when I stopped carrying your weight. You mistook kindness for weakness, and you mistook silence for surrender. Both were mistakes." Her phone buzzed again. HR's templated invite for her informational discussion. She didn't open it. She didn't have to. Her face told me she knew exactly what it meant. For years, Ava had curated her life around applause and adoration. She mocked me for being her safety net, the man who'd always catch her when she stumbled. But nets, I thought as I watched her tremble, aren't just for catching. They're also for ensnaring. And this time, I had tightened the weave until she couldn't escape. By noon, her office was cleared out. By 2, her name vanished from the staff directory. And by evening, I sat alone in the south corner office, staring at the skyline, while her last message flashed unanswered on my phone. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Can we talk?" I typed one reply. "Speak to HR. That's the correct channel now." And then I set the phone face down. Because Ava had wanted a man who made noise, who shouted, who slammed doors. But my revenge wasn't noise. It was silence. It was final. The condo was silent when Ava returned that night, except for the kettle's softness on the stove. She dropped her keys, her heels, her composure, all clattering across the hardwood like pieces of a crown stripped away. Her eyes were red, her blazer buttoned unevenly, her phone clutched like a lifeline to a world that no longer wanted her. "You set this up," she whispered, voice splintering. "You planned everything." I didn't deny it. I poured hot water into a mug, let the steam rise, and met her trembling gaze. "Yes." The word broke her. "I protected you for years." I continued, my voice steady. "When you overspent, I covered it. When you came home late, I didn't ask questions. I let you laugh at me, mock me, even replace me with him in front of a room full of people. I absorbed it all. And still, you chose to burn me down." Her lips quivered. "It was just a joke. I didn't think." "No," I cut in. "You didn't." She sat down on the armrest of the couch, mascara smudged, scrolling through her phone as if the right notification might undo the day. None came. HR's email was still there, stark and clinical. She was no longer Ava Sterling, the queen of North Peak. She was a liability. "We can fix this," she begged. "You can stop the process. Just say it's all a misunderstanding." "There's nothing to fix," I said. I opened the drawer by the bookshelf and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. Inside, 2 copies of a legal separation agreement, already signed and notarized. She froze. "You're divorcing me?" "Not yet," I replied calmly. "This isn't about giving you a stage to play the victim. This is about reality. You need to leave this house." Her hand shook as she traced my signature on the page. "I don't know who I am without that job," she admitted, voice so small I almost didn't recognize it. "That's your problem now," I said. "Not mine." The kettle began to whistle behind me like a curtain call. I poured the tea, walked upstairs, and left her staring at the envelope like it was a loaded weapon. The next morning, she rolled her suitcases across the floor without theatrics. No crying, no shouting, just the mechanical drag of wheels on wood. At 9:12 a.m., she stood by the kitchen island. "How long were you planning this?" she asked, her voice flat. I slid a matte black USB drive across the counter. "Long enough." She picked it up with trembling fingers, her eyes searching mine for mercy. I gave her none. By the time the door clicked shut behind her, the condo was still, clean, final. 15 minutes later, she sat in her car 2 blocks away, plugging in the drive. She would see everything: the screenshots, the audio clips, the messages where she mocked me, the plan she thought no one knew about. And then the last file, the message that ended it all. Your severance has been finalized. Good luck. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. Because revenge hadn't just been about taking Dylan's share or stripping Ava of her mask. It was about reclaiming myself. And this time, silence was my victory song.